In this video, we're going to talk about why it's so important to clarify your intentions. So, welcome back to another episode of the Daily Studies. I love breaking down books. I love studying regularly. And what I do is I take you guys through the journey of me studying. Right now, the book I'm reading is The Daily Stoic. And we're going to open up to the fifth day in the Daily Stoic and look at why it's so important to clarify your intention and what it means. So, I'm going to go ahead and switch over and let's read through this. Let all your efforts be directed at something. Let it keep that end in view. It's not activity that disturbs people, but false conceptions of things that drive them mad. This was written by Seneca on the tranquility of minds. Now, before I even go into the rest of it, I'm actually going to break this down because the first time I read it, I was almost a little confused. It says, let all your efforts be directed at something. In other words, have a focus, have a target. You're going to find that when you have a clear target, aiming becomes much easier. And then it says, let's keep that end in view. So let's keep the target in our line of sight. And it's not activity that disturbs people. So it's not the actual doing of the work that is the bother, but it's the false conceptions of things that drive them mad. In other words, when you're doing the work and maybe you don't understand why. I heard this some years ago that typically people don't get upset about the work that they need to do. They get upset when they don't know why they need to do that work. If you understood that, hey, today you need to show up and work a 12-hour day, you might be upset. But if I said that 12-hour day is going to equate to someone at the end of 12 hours handing you a briefcase with $1 million, you're no longer upset because you understand why you're doing it. You understand the reward at the end and you want the reward. There's a clear target. This is how you're able to see some people go and build these massive businesses even though it requires so much work, so much effort, so many years of their lives of dedication. It's because they have a clear picture from the start of what the finish looks like. Let's look at this now. It reads, Law 29 of the 48 Laws of Power is plan all the way to the end. Robert Greene writes, by planning to the end, you will not be overwhelmed by circumstances and you will know when to stop. Gently guide fortune and help determine the future by thinking far ahead. The second habit in the 7 habits of highly effective people is begin with an end in mind. Having an end in mind is no guarantee that you will reach it. No Stoic would tolerate such an assumption, but not having an end in mind is a guarantee you won't. To the Stoics, oesis, false conceptions, are responsible not just for disturbances in the soul, but for chaotic and dysfunctional lives and operations. When your efforts are not directed at a cause or a purpose, how will you know what to do day in and day out? How will you know what to say no to or what to say yes to? How will you know when you've had enough, when you've reached your goal, and when you've gotten off track? If you've not defined those things, the answer is you cannot, and you're driven into failure, or worse, into madness by the oblivion of directionlessness. All right, let's talk about this. Let's break this one down. I'm probably not even going to refer back to it as much with the text because this is a topic that I am completely adamant about. You have to have clarity, and clarity looks like knowing what the target is. It looks like knowing what the finish line is. When we talk about not having clarity, let's look at some of the issues that come as a result. 1, procrastination. Typically, people procrastinate not because they don't want to be successful. It's because they're not clear on what they actually need to do. They're not clear on what they're actually trying to do. Sometimes I'll hear people with very vague sense of vision where they'll say, well, I want to make a lot of money. Or Marlon, I want to have a successful business. Or I want to be a real estate investor. Awesome. But what does that mean? Can you define what a successful real estate investor is? Can you define what a lot of money is? Can you get specific? Because when you get specific, this is how you get places. It's the difference between telling your GPS, I want to go somewhere, and telling your GPS that I want to get to Santa Monica Pier in California. When I start to give a very specific location and I know what the finish line actually is from a picture, from a location, from a status, from an amount of money, from a number, right? I have coordinates, I have longitude and latitude. I can begin to get there. But when I don't have that, you're going to find that there will be a lot of procrastination. Also, you're going to find it's more difficult to get people to want to help you when you're not sure on what the end picture is, because when you don't know what the end is, you can't describe it to somebody else. You can't get other people involved in your vision. You can't get them to invest in you. You can't get them to work with you. You can't hire them for the job. Imagine trying to hire a contractor or a handyman, and you say to them, hey, I need you to build out my kitchen, and I need you to also paint my walls. And that you might have the handyman ask you, well, what do you need it to look like? Right? What's the design? If you don't give them a design, how can you possibly get upset with them when what they build isn't to your liking? It's the same thing here with your life. If you don't give the order, the blueprint for what you want to have your life look like, you're going to start to drift. Now, speaking of drifting, right? Let's look at this. He says down here, he says the worst thing that can happen by not being clear, the worst thing that can happen by not having your intention is you'll be driven into madness of directionlessness. Napoleon Hill, in Outwitting the Devil, referred to this as drifting. He said, what happens is you become a drifter. When you don't know clearly what it is you desire, you become a drifter. And as a drifter, you basically float through life. You never really produce much. You don't live up to your potential. You don't tap into your potential. And in order for us to change that, the very first place we need to start is by writing down clearly, this is what I desire. And I desire it by this date. And this is what I'm willing to give in exchange for what I desire. If you haven't realized already, your entire life is a bit of an exchange. You're consistently exchanging your time and your attention and your focus and your energy for the things that you want. But if you don't know what you want, your time, your energy, your attention, it's going out regardless. So what I want you to do, what I'm suggesting here, is you discover what you would like to trade it for versus just letting it be burnt up in the fire, right? It's almost like if you don't use it, you lose it. If you don't use it, you're wasting it. It's very true. Think about that. You spent your 24 hours yesterday, but what did you get in return? There are people like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and Oprah Winfrey who spent their 24 hours yesterday, and in return, they made millions of dollars. In return, they made impact. In return, they made people smile. In return, they created jobs. In return, they went on and they're working on their dreams to get people off the planet and to do all the things. They determined what they want. They set a price. Here's a cool thing. Whatever price you set for life, it will pay, but you have to be intentional. Right? You have to be intentional. And 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is one of my favorite books. And he's absolutely right when he says you want to begin with an end in mind. Get clear on what the finish line looks like for you. And it doesn't need to sound good for anybody else. It only needs to inspire you. It only needs to motivate you. And this will give you the ability to also now say yes and no to certain decisions. Sometimes you ever find you feel like you said yes to somebody and it was a total waste of time. You agreed to go out on a Friday night, and at the end of it, you're like, this was a waste of time. Well, why couldn't you know it was going to be a waste of time before you said yes? It's because you don't know clearly what your goals are. If you knew that, hey, I have a deadline, I have a goal, I want to make this happen by Saturday, then it would have given you the reason, it would have given you the justification to say no. So you would be able to prioritize. Without knowing where you're going, you cannot prioritize. So this is food for thought. I'm hoping this is resonating with you. Take some time to reflect on yourself and ask, do you have a clear goal? Do you have a clear vision in front of you? And if you do not have a clear vision in front of you, I want you to sit down and open up a book. There's a certain book I want you to read. It's Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. It's a classic. If you've never read it, read it. If you've read it before, read it again. Because after you read that book and you do the exercises in that book, you should be able to pull out of your pocket at any time a goal card, or it should be on your cell phone, right? You should be able to pull out your cell phone, and on your cell phone, there should be a goal card that states with absolute certainty and clarity what it is that you desire and the things that you're moving towards. I hope this helps. Guys, let me know in the comments below if you agree with me, if you disagree, what your thoughts are. And if you already know what your goal is and you feel comfortable sharing it, leave that in the comments below. Again, if you're new to the channel and you like this type of video, you got value here, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and share it with a friend that you think needs to hear this. Guys, in the meantime, stay blessed by the best, and I'll see you in the next video.